Hi there. A couple we- a couple weeks ago, I uploaded a short here on YouTube where I shared some micro thoughts on boundaries, and one of you commented, "I agree. Guard your gates." It's a phrase that feels instinctively right to many of us, isn't it? There's something about the imagery, the wall, the fortress, the fence, that feels very reassuring. It suggests safety, order, even dignity. But I want to pause here for a second because I think that this framing might not be the best option for us. The way I've come to see boundaries is a little bit different, and this shift has changed not only how I hold myself emotionally, but also how I relate to others. So in this video, I want to walk you through my perspective, not to just tinker with a definition, but to potentially reframe the very shape of relating. Because such is my standard. No, because when we see boundaries differently, we move differently. We become less isolated, more free, less guarded, more discerning. Let's dive in. So, what are boundaries really? As we mentioned, the most common metaphor is that of a fortress, of a wall, of a fence, something that needs guarding. Clear, rigid structures that ensure our safety by keeping the good in and the bad out. And even though there are appropriate times for this metaphor, especially when we have been through deep hurt or if we're healing from something, the times where we might need to retreat and protect, walls can be temporarily useful. But here's the problem. Walls don't breathe. They don't move. This metaphor is ultimately static. And when we rely on it for too long, we start assuming a world where safety equals separation and where interaction is inherently threatening. However, I think it is worth noting that a boundary isn't inherently about defense. A boundary is about definition. And this is not just a psychological fact. It is a structural feature of relational reality. Because you see, for anything to be in relationship with anything else, it has to have its distinct form, its shape, its identity. For anything to be in relationship with anything else, something has to be relatable. Boundaries don't simply reinforce identity, they create identity. And it is that distinction that allows interaction to occur in the first place. Without it, you would have only fusion, which is, in many cases, especially those pertaining to human relationships, indistinguishable from confusion. I wanted to make that joke. Imagine two dancers on stage. If each of them doesn't know where their own body ends and the other's begins, they cannot dance. Of course, form alone is not enough for a relationship. The dancers have to see each other and to recognize the other more than just the prop in their own choreography. And they have to stay in exchange, moving, responding, adjusting. Without trust, the dance falls apart. Without time together, it never develops. So, boundaries are just one of these preconditions, but they're the one that gives us a self to bring to the dance. So the question is not whether to have boundaries, but how those boundaries behave. Any sealed-off system, a nation with closed-off borders, a mind locked in an echo chamber, or a person emotionally walled off, can preserve stability for a while. And it starts off as protection, or even as order sometimes. But life depends on exchange, adaptation, growth. Any system that lacks circulation will eventually decay. And in my view, it's the same here. Total emotional isolation or rigid identity structures lead to stagnation, breakdown, or even delusion. In my view, psychological health requires intra- and interpersonal permeability. So I think that a more useful analogy here than, a wall or fence is akin to a membrane, like the one around a living cell. It's not indiscriminate. It doesn't let anything in. It's intelligent and it's discerning. This is a boundary that is equally intelligent and self-aware, that allows both for the preservation of self while maintaining contact with other. It's like a dynamic interface where you meet the world, take in what's useful, and remain yourself. But here is the real difficulty. For many of us, boundaries don't just feel uncomfortable. For those of us who experience anxiety, guilt, or have relational wounds from the olden days, or even a certain overextension of empathy, saying no or setting any kind of boundary feels almost like an act of violence. Not just to the other person, but also to ourselves. Somewhere deep in the nervous system, there's this belief that compliance equals safety, or that expressing what you actually want is the same as being selfish. That in order to stay in connection, we need to erase ourselves. So we smooth things over. We keep the peace, and we essentially sacrifice inner connection to preserve outer connection. But here's the catch. This isn't real connection, because without inner truth, that outer bond is hollow. As we said earlier, if you don't bring yourself into the dance, is it really a duet? You know? Or an ensemble. Whatever show you're in, it's your stage. There is this trade here, but it's a trade that leads to the erosion of our self-trust. And the whole shift starts when we stop being willing to do that. So here's a real shift for you. This is where things can change for you. When you stop being willing to make that trade. Self-trust only grows when we respond to what we notice, not when we dismiss it. You have to listen closely enough to be able to notice what's true for you in the moment, and then to express it, even when it feels uncomfortable. Boundaries, then, is the art of differentiation without disconnection. For this video, let's say I'm coining the term, so I'm not going to leave you in the abstract, okay? Let's talk about the practice. Usually, you will notice your earliest signs in the body. So it could be a tightening of your jaw, a rise in the shoulders, or a shortening of breath. These are not inconveniences, okay? They are data points. And here are 3 micro practices I return to again and again and again. Number 1, scanning. Pause, notice. When you start feeling that discomfort, usually in your body, notice it. And don't rush to over-explain it yet. Don't rush to intellectualize it or rationalize it. The boundary is not the rationalization you assign to it. The boundary is the very fact that you feel discomfort in the first place. Okay. Number 2, name one layer deeper. Instead of just saying, I'm upset, try, I feel tight because I need some quiet. Or I feel nervous because I don't want to disappoint. That precision is the beginning of differentiation. And number 3, low stakes expression. There's nothing wrong with practicing on the small things, okay? I'd like the window open. Or can we slow down a little bit? The content doesn't matter. What matters is proving to yourself, I can notice, I can express, and I can stay in connection. And this has nothing to do with being combative or whatever sort of firm expression and whatnot. This is about keeping your shape while allowing the other person or situation to keep their own. In my view, the real strength of a boundary isn't in how hard you can hold it. It's in how accurately it reflects the truth of your selfhood. When boundaries become relational intelligence, they stop being the end of connection and start being what makes connection real. So that's my view on boundaries. I really don't think it's not about building higher walls. It's not about having to guard them all the time. It's about learning to stand as you are, clear, alive, permeable, so that whatever comes toward you meets the real you every time. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. If any of this resonated, you know what to do. Let me know in the comments. It will make a difference. And if you know someone who could use a reframe around boundaries, consider sharing it with them. As always, subscribe for more. Till next time.